former central banker. How worried are you about the stability of the US financial system?
It's starting to happen here. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, Mark Carney making some announcements coming from Germany. We've also got his environment minister, as well as his AI minister and his energy minister, all essentially beating the same drum. It's Mark Carney's green agenda. It's the one he's invested in heavily through Brookfield and his other investments. This is not good for Germany. This is not good for Canada. Let's jump into this. Starting this one off, we've got Canada Post in the news. Toronto Sun posting this 407 million Q2 loss as parcel volumes suffer. Canada Post has been on the brink here of collapse for months now. Got this one from Kirk. It says asylum claims by Indians in Canada by year 2015 268. As you see here, 446. You jump up to 2019, it's 1189. And by 2023, Justin Trudeau had completely opened the floodgates, and you have 5,000 people, 5,900 last year, and now we're at 5,402 for just the first 6 months. We're on track for 11,000 asylum claimants from India alone. As he says here, there are currently 41,698 asylum claims outstanding by Indians. This is insane. We have to shut the gate. It's time to have people go home. We don't have room for people. We don't have doctors or nurses, housing for people. We don't have jobs for people. Time to shut the door. And the fact that so many people from India are taking advantage of this system because they're not fleeing from a dangerous country. Canada should declare India a safe country and decline all of the asylum cases at once. We should have only a very select few countries that we take asylum seekers from. Moving ahead, this bombshell news, Mark Carney's third stop in his trip. He went to Ukraine, he went to Poland, and now he's in Germany. Why was he in Germany? And considering, if you watched the last video, the German chancellor did not stop in Canada when he came over to America. Clearly, there's not a lot of respect there. Why is Mark Carney in Germany? Well, it's this: Canada to launch talks on shipping LNG to German customers. So now they're talking about LNG. LNG is suddenly back on the table. But this is not going to be any LNG. This is going to be green LNG. We also got this from CTV, touting enormous LNG properties. Carney says Canada to unveil new port infrastructure investments within 2 weeks. Oh, really? That's not the only thing he was in Germany for. The bigger announcement is one that they're not really announcing here, at least not on CBC.
We have breaking news to lead off this hour. Prime Minister Mark Carney is taking fresh steps to reposition Canada's trade relationships. He's in Germany this morning. On the same day, his U.S. trade minister is restarting talks with Washington. This is video from Berlin earlier this morning as the prime minister is welcomed by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Germany is the prime minister's latest stop from his trip to Europe. We can tell you there are two headline developments this morning. Prime Minister Carney says his government is signing a partnership with Germany to develop critical minerals in Canada. The other development is about a big military spending program. Canada is looking to replace its aging fleet of subs, and this is a project potentially worth tens of billions of dollars. Carney is announcing this morning a giant German shipyard will be one of two finalists.
The German-Norwegian partnership is one of the two finalists for this, consistent with the cooperation potential that we have, and consistent with Canada fully fulfilling its responsibilities on all three of our coasts. The Chancellor...
They go through and break this down a bit more, but basically, if we get submarines from South Korea, they'll cost about $2 billion each. And if we get them from Germany, they'll cost more than that. They don't know how much more, but more.
And we were joined by others in developing a critical minerals action plan. Basically, for this diversification to happen, you need willing buyers as well as willing sellers. And we have an initiative to help develop and stockpile those critical minerals. And that it's in that context that the Minister of Natural Resources and his counterpart will be signing a joint declaration on intent on critical minerals cooperation, so to accelerate innovation, investment, and collaboration.
Moving over to his press conference, he talks more about the LNG and green hydrogen, but you'll notice he doesn't use the word green, neither does Tim Hodgson. This is very deliberate because the Germans have brought in green hydrogen and has devastated their economy going forward.
And there are medium-term opportunities with respect to all forms of energy, including LNG and hydrogen.
Ambitious green energy targets that they're trying to implement here have not worked in Germany. Tell me about what's happened in Germany, because they turned their back on nuclear. They went down the renewables road hard, and the results have been almost catastrophic.
It's been disastrous for Germany. I mean, this is... You know, they were the poster child, Europe's poster child of green energy. And I caught the train from Hamburg to Berlin, and every field, it seems, is covered in solar panels and windmills, but it's not doing the trick, as they found out, when the gas supply went up, the price of gas went up, they were just really, really hurt. And now the electricity price in Germany is the highest in Europe. It's about twice as high as it is across the water there in Sweden, where they're running on nuclear and hydroelectricity. And this is affecting industry. 30% of German businesses told their big Chamber of Commerce in a survey that they were looking to relocate offshore. And this is happening. You can see German industry is declining very quickly, and they're moving when they can to places where there is cheaper electricity. It's been a disaster for Germany, and it's bringing about their industrial collapse. That great country where we used to, we always used to go there for Audis and washing machines. You won't be getting those from Germany for much longer, because they've basically stuffed it all up.
The Germans did this to themselves. They chose to go down this path and has destroyed their economy. Their electricity cost, the base cost of life, has now become too expensive. Is this what we want here in our country? Because this is the road we're going down with Mark Carney, Tim Hodgson. These guys are rolling out this plan to enrich themselves and stick us with the bill. I mean, we see it from all these different articles. Green hydrogen alone won't save Germany's heavy industry. What happened is Russia cut off the gas back when the conflict started. And so they made a big push to switch to hydrogen, green hydrogen. And with green hydrogen, you have green steel and all these other green industries, essentially using green hydrogen in the place of coal during the steel production. And now companies are pushing back on that. We're seeing this here. ArcelorMittal drops plans for green steel in Germany due to high energy costs. And look at this. The government was giving them subsidies of 1.3 billion euros. That's $2 billion of free money. And this company turned it down. Germany ministry regrets decision, notes no money has flown yet. The world's second largest steelmaker said on Thursday it had dropped its plans to convert 2 plants in Germany to carbon neutral production because the country's energy costs were too high. So Mark Carney wants to create more of this green hydrogen and ship it over to Germany because his investments in Brookfield would benefit from this handsomely.
Could you please explore a bit more what Canada can realistically actually offer to Germany and Europe, given the fact that ports on the East Coast and also pipelines are still lacking? And as a former central banker, how worried are you about the stability of the US financial system because of the interventions of Trump at the Fed?
Boy, he got really excited when he got mentioned as a central banker. I believe they're using the LNG as a bridge now because the green hydrogen has been such a disaster in Germany.
The question, look, there's a huge range of immediate opportunities with respect to critical metals and minerals, and there are medium-term opportunities with respect to all forms of energy, including LNG and hydrogen. And I'll quickly explain how we make those happen. Our government is in the process of unleashing $500 billion of investment in energy infrastructure, port infrastructure, particularly intelligence infrastructure as well, with AI. And a number of those investments, the first of which we will be formally announcing in the next 2 weeks, are with respect to new port infrastructure. And some of the examples in the public domain will include from reinforcing and building on the Port of Montreal, Contrecoeur, a new port effectively in Churchill, Manitoba, which would open up enormous LNG plus other opportunities and other East Coast ports for those critical metals and minerals. So there is a lot happening. It's the number one focus of this government is to build that infrastructure, and particularly infrastructure that helps us deepen our partnership with our European partners, and particularly Germany. With respect to the United States financial system, the strength of the United States financial system is many and varied. Its strength on its diversity, bedrock of capital, ability to adjust to many circumstances and much volatility, and I'm confident.
And that's why he's 91% invested in America, not basically anywhere else, including Canada, despite being the Prime Minister of Canada.
That whatever the source of that volatility, U.S. financial stability will continue, of course.
Yeah, he banks on it because all his money literally banks on it. This guy's such a loser. Jumping over to his energy minister, Tim Hodgson here. Listen to him talk about green hydrogen. But he doesn't say the word green, because if you look up the word green hydrogen and Germany, then you get a whole big rabbit hole of articles, and they don't want to be tied to that. So I think they deliberately, their messaging coming from Liberal HQ was telling them don't use the word green with hydrogen this time, because they've said it before in Canada numerous times.
We had very good discussions on Germany's interest in Canadian liquefied natural gas, and on continuing the development of ammonia and hydrogen supplies from Canada to Europe. Very constructive conversations. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor very much view our two countries as having shared values and shared vision around trading.
So the Democrats in Germany tripled down on this, and it's led to the highest electricity prices in Europe, which is in Germany, because of their ammonia green hydrogen. Now, how this works, we go back to my chart here. This is what Tim Houston's trying to bring in, this green hydrogen scam, through Trent Vici, private meetings, Everwind Fuels. There's these two articles on the Halifax Examiner, which bust open this whole green hydrogen scam. We've got them here. Obviously dishonest. Premier Tim Houston repeatedly met with green hydrogen investor Trent Vici, then failed to properly file his expense claims, obscuring those meetings. And this one here, green hydrogen is a gargantuan scam. Considering Germany is now cutting funding for hydrogen in the new budget, they're not even supporting their own initiative anymore. As I showed this one here, you've got 1.3 billion or 2 billion Canadian dollars in subsidies, and these companies are not taking it. It's not working. So what Tim Houston, Mark Carney, they've been slowly announcing this with the wind turbines off the coast of Nova Scotia. They put in wind turbines, it generates electricity, and then you think that electricity goes into the grid. No, that's not what they're trying to do here. They put water through an electrolyzer, but before then they have to pull water in and then desalinate it, take the salt out of the ocean water, turn it into pure water. Then that pure water goes to the electrolyzer. They split it into hydrogen and oxygen. They take the hydrogen, they take in some air from around the windmill, split out the nitrogen, they mix it together with the hydrogen, then they create ammonia. There's a whole process in here where they superheat it and they supercool it, and when they supercool it, it turns into a liquid. They put it into a tanker, and then they ship it over to Germany. Then Germany can then reverse this process, turn it back into hydrogen, and burn it for energy. This whole process here, when you throw in the desalinization, turning it into pure water, all of that, it's 20% efficient. 20%, where it is nearly 100% efficient if they just took this electricity from these wind turbines and plugged it right into the grid. Now you might be wondering, why would they do this? Well, it's creating a brand new market that they can then sell product around the world. And since Brookfield has the investments in this, through a handful of these companies, they have investments in those electrolyzers. They have investments in the green energy. To have green hydrogen, you need to have green energy powering that whole system, aka the windmills. But Brookfield has other sources of green energy, like Westinghouse Nuclear Services. They can sell this energy as well to process the desalinization, the electrolyzers, all that, turning all of that into ammonia to sell that to Germany, and then say it's green hydrogen. And then Germany can say, well, we use green hydrogen to create our green steel, and we're so eco and we're so green. Meanwhile, China doesn't care and fires up a new coal-fired power plant every single week. There's a way to make things more green and eco without using a ton of coal. We should be creating more LNG, which now they're starting to announce because they realize they're getting caught in their grift. I have a feeling they're going to still try to tie in all this stuff like entropy, carbon capture, or any one of these other carbon capture companies into their LNG. As for the color coding, you might see there's gray, blue, and green. These are the different levels of how clean a power source is. So say for hydrogen, if they use natural gas instead of wind power to create that ammonia, if they're just using natural gas that doesn't have carbon capture, then they would call it gray hydrogen. If they had carbon capture attached to it, they would call it blue hydrogen. If they're using wind power or nuclear power, something very eco-green, then they call it green hydrogen. So Brookfield's tied into this. As long as their whole mission is this carbon net zero agenda, they'll be tying in a whole bunch of these companies to make things more eco and green, and Brookfield profits from it. Thus, Mark Carney will profit from this.
As you know, Canada is committed to getting to net zero by 2050, and much of that work happens through working through the regulations that we have. For example, the industrial carbon price does an important part of reducing our emissions, as does making sure that we have clean electricity across our country.
In this case here, we've got AI Minister Evan Solomon, ex-CBC employee who was fired because he was doing shady, dirty art deals with guests who came on the show, side note. Here he's at a facility where they're 3D printing buildings, 3-story buildings. And here he is touting net zero.
To build what I hear could be a Guinness Book of World Records net zero student residence, but a 3-story net zero, which would be the first of its kind in the world, which is incredible. So I'll give you a hand.
It's now 12 years since Angela Merkel mysteriously, well, actually under green pressure, said we're going to phase out our nuclear plant. So they've had 12 years to work out how to power their electricity grid without nuclear, without using coal, without using gas. And these are the German engineers, the same German engineers that gave you Vorsprung durch Technik. You know, they are the best in the world. And they can't work it out, and the country is suffering as a result. They just...
That's such an important point. This is German engineers who can't figure this out. This green utopia is just that. It's a fake, false dream.
Reopened 8 coal mines in the last 2 years, would you believe, because it's cheaper than getting gas in from overseas.
They've had to reopen 8 coal mines just to have enough power because of being cut off from Russia.
They actually knocked down 1 wind farm to dig up some coal. That's telling you something, isn't it? But, you know, somehow Chris Bowen, he was in Germany last year. He didn't spot any of this, apparently. He just thinks that Germany is the great vision of the future we have to follow. You know, dream on, Mr. Bowen, dream on.
I mean, the results are in the energy prices. The fact that they have sky-high energy prices. You got places like Sweden that are using hydro and nuclear, and they have low prices. This should be quite clear what the vision for the future for basically any country is.